Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salter, the Golf Hypnotherapist. And on Thursday of this week, you're about to experience, see, and obviously hear Scott Fawcett from Decade Golf is back for the third time here on the podcast. And I swear, maybe I'm biased, each conversation continues to get better and better. And Scott and I were talking after we recorded this third conversation, and he mentioned that he really enjoys our conversations, how I approach the interviews, and he always wished he had more time to ask me questions back in return to make it even more conversational. So what we did is we flipped roles. And in today's conversation, you're going to hear Scott interview me. And there's wide-ranging questions. We're going to talk golf, talk hypnosis. We're going to talk meditation. We're going to talk Tiger Woods. We're going to talk my background. And it's my hope that you learn something new about me. You hear me say something in a slightly different light, with a potentially slightly different perspective that today, maybe more than ever before, it clicks. It challenges you to take action, see differently, do differently, believe, and ultimately be differently, so you can achieve differently. That's why you're here, to learn, to go, to grow, so you can be more and do more. So again, buckle up. It's a fun conversation. You know, the recording software I use and all the AI technologies, I wish I could show you the frames and the screens that it captured, the stills, throughout the conversation. So many laughs, so many big smiles between Scott and I. I know you're going to absolutely enjoy the conversation. Before we dig in, I want to remind you, I've started brand new from scratch on Instagram. At the Paul Salter is now where you can find a daily dose of my contact, connecting with you. It's the best way to engage with me. And if you're not following me there, pause this conversation and go follow me there at the Paul Salter. At the Golf Hypnotherapist is still banned, and I don't think it's ever coming back. So at the Paul Salter, that's where to find me. Without further ado, buckle up and enjoy this phenomenal conversation where Scott Fawcett, founder of Decade Golf, interviews me.
All right. I'm on the other side of the microphone today. We're going to call this the Decade Today's podcast. I've really thought about starting a podcast a lot recently, and even more so recently, just because I haven't, just because I don't feel like I've got the time to consistently release. Like, you see Chris Williamson like doing 3 a week, and he's at 1,500 shows, which I understand that's what you got to do to get decent at it. So I'm sure this is going to be a bumbling mess. This is the first time I've ever interviewed someone. But today we're going to talk with Paul Salter. I've been on his podcast, the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast, 3 different times, and I've always been really impressed with the questions he asks, the follow-ups and everything. And we recorded another one last week that comes out on Thursday. So this is February 9th. So here in a few days.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? You're a really good talker and a good dude. Let me try to talk to you, because I find what he does intriguing. So he is a hypnotist. Would that be the right word of saying? Is that
Hypnotist, hypnotherapist, mindset coach.
And I just really wanted to dig in more into his background and what he does with his players. He's kind of an executive coach also. And I just thought that I would sit back and try to learn. So I'm going to throw my first question at you. I don't really know your background at all. I know I get to tell my story all the time on podcasts. There's a guy named Jim Rome that I love, where he's like, he starts off a 4-hour presentation with this like 5-minute spiel on himself. He's like, well, y'all seem kind of bored with your story, with my story, but I love it and I like hearing it. So give me the canned bio of how you became who you are and your upbringing, what got you into coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, you have to hear, like, most people struggle to start podcasts because they're afraid they're going to run out of things to talk about. I don't ever envision that being an issue for you. So this is, again, just a nudge for you. Hey, podcasting could be your next calling.
Well, the key is, can I shut up? I mean, that's really... That's the key.
That takes repetition. You hear me. I've gotten pretty good over the years, but that's because that's been 1,000 repetitions. I like to talk as well.
Yeah, perfect.
But yeah, so I'll jump off that. I appreciate the question. Yeah, so imagine this. 5'1", 110 pounds, soaking wet multi-sport athlete at 16 years old. Everybody is bigger, stronger, faster. All the girls are taller than me. I'm a little runt, but I'm competitive. I'm scrappy. And I'm looking for every edge I can to keep up. And when I was growing up, this was when Michael Jordan was in his prime. This is when Tiger Woods was really coming onto the scene. Roger Federer and Kobe were kind of that next wave of the 1% of the 1%. And at such a young age, I was always fascinated. Michael Jordan more or less spent the same number of hours in the gym, training, practicing as most of the other guys in the league. Why is he so much better than everybody else? So it fascinated me, and it allowed me to use that as curiosity. I was that guy as a high schooler who read a lot of books. I had a lot of friends. I was the athlete, but I also wore the nerd hat really well. I was fascinated with learning. These people, the performance psychology is probably the term to describe the books I would read back then. I didn't know what I was really reading back then. And I carried that curiosity with me. I am 6 foot now, so eventually I hit that growth spurt.
Wow.
And really just started to crave, how can I emulate what I'm learning? Success leaves clues. What can I do to take principles from some of the best and apply them to me? And for me, my first love was natural bodybuilding. Again, I'm not a big guy, but I could get fucking crazy lean, which is a huge edge in the bodybuilding world. At least it was 2 decades ago. Now everybody can do it with drugs, but that's a different story. So I took this, and bodybuilding for me was a literal direct input-output experiment. If I ate well, if I exercised like this, and I slowly reduced portions and exercised more, the impact it had on my body in a relatively short amount of time, fascinating. I was obsessed with it. So I turned that into a degree in dietetics. I had my sights set. I was going to be the first ever sports dietitian for the Washington Redskins. And you have to remember, you were listening today in 20.
Big goal.
I'm a diehard Redskins fan. It's a struggle, but I wear it well. But at that time, today nutrition is everywhere in pro sports, Olympic sports. Back then, there were only 7 full-time sports dietitians in the NFL. 7. That means all these teams, not to take away, but strength coaches were running the meal plans, and they were not staying in their lane. They're not experts in that lane. They did the best they could, but imagine bringing on a full team of experts with each individual niche able to cater to an athlete's needs. Fortunately, today, that's where we're at. But back then, it was a lofty goal, and I used that to light a fire under my ass. I kept reading, studying, learning, surrounding myself with mentors, and it worked. I landed a job at IMG Academy. I worked, which is a prestigious training facility down in Bradenton, formerly the Nicholas Bollettieri Tennis Training Academy. Yeah. And I worked very closely with elite high school, collegiate, professional, and Olympic athletes. Yet selfishly, I was just a sponge. If I'm hanging out in the room with 5 Olympic sprinters, how are they talking to other people? How are they carrying themselves? How are they training? And I was just sitting there studying as I was putting together their supplement and nutrition plans. And I enjoyed a really exciting chapter working with elite athletes as a dietitian. But I quickly realized I could have a far bigger impact outside of the athletic space. And I also realized these guys already knew what to do, how to eat, what to eat. The problem most people, even the best of the best, ran into was executing on the knowledge they had. Old identity patterns came into play, beliefs, sabotaging behaviors, even at that level. So the crux of my nutrition coaching and education really began to focus on what's between the ears, what's going on in the heart. Why don't you do what it is you're supposed to be doing to achieve a goal? And for those of you listening, that statement is applicable to golf, to entrepreneurship, to marriage, to every facet of life. If you know what to do and you're not doing it, Google and ChatGPT aren't going to solve your issues. You've got to look inward and understand it's a mindset problem. So we do that.
I've got close to 6 digits of therapy and trying to figure out why I don't do what I know is right.
Well, Scott, that's where hypnosis comes into play. I'm sure we'll get there. But after I kind of shifted out of that, I started working with chronic yo-yo dieters, and I built a massive community, specifically 95% women who every couple of years lose 20, gain 30, lose 20, gain 30. And I really kind of taglined it, sustainable weight loss from the inside out, and begin digging into their emotions, their trauma, their baggage, their beliefs, how deserving, worthy, and capable are they of, feeling, looking, and being their best. And absolutely loved that. But as I hit about 10 years of coaching under my belt, I just had this irrepressible passion for the game of poker. And I kept telling myself one day one day I do it, bucket list. I'm going to play in the World Series of Poker main event. I'm going to spend the whole summer out there. And I'm going to do it one day when I retire, when I'm done having kids, blah, blah, blah. But I just started having this itch. Like, I don't think you're ever going to do it. Like, if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. So I committed. I went all in on playing poker professionally. I systematized my coaching business.
Went all in.
Yeah, right. Well, so funny enough, you say that, and I went all in several times and was on the losing end of those first 6 months. I mean, I thought I was out studying, out working everybody. I had the coaches, and I just felt like I was lighting money on fire. Frustrated is an understatement, but I wasn't ready to give up. So I hired a mindset and performance coach. She happened to be a hypnotherapist, and believe it or not, for those of you listening, there's an incredible passionate community of mindset and hypnotherapy coaching, primarily for poker players. And Elliot Rowe, he's my mentor. He's been a guest on my podcast, is like the guy in the poker space, as well as the 8 and 9 figure entrepreneur space. I started studying his material. My coach was the direct number 2 to him, Adrian, who's phenomenal. And in a very short amount of time, I suddenly started making a hell of a lot of money. I played for stakes I never dreamed of being able to sit down comfortably and play. And it worked. But far more valuable, just the impact on me as an individual. I felt like I was a totally different person, yet finally myself, like confident, clear, authentically me. So I walked away from poker. I started phasing out my nutrition coaching, doubling down on some of the mindset coaching I was already doing. I got my credential as a hypnotherapist, and I just hit the ground running. I surrounded myself with as many mentors and people who are far smarter and experienced than I have. And I just learn and go and repeat the process over and over.
So did you play in the main event?
I still haven't done it yet, because funny enough, I booked a whole summer. Out there, 2 months, had the Airbnb and everything. COVID derailed that. And that was when I was slowly starting to phase out. So I don't play much anymore. Unfortunately, I live vicariously through my clients, but it will happen.
I played in the main event in 2006. And
okay.
I don't know, it's probably 10 hours into day one. And this guy hadn't played a single hand under the gun. And like, there's like 2 super just tight people right in front of me. Between me, I'm probably cut off seat, something like that.
Okay.
That guy raises, the next guy throws in raises him. And I'm just like, I've got king, queen of spades. And I'm like, I'm going to have no clue where I'm after the flop. If like,
You're
just
toast.
Fold here. And I'm sure it was the right fold.
Mm-hmm.
Big blind flats. And then the original razor flats, and the flop comes king, king, king.
Oh, God, that hurts.
Shove, call. And I'm like, the last guy, so the guy that he did have aces. So, I mean, I was totally doomed. But when I'm just sitting there watching, I'm like, well, none of you have the king. I mean, I don't know what happened. And I believe it was jacks, queens, and aces, and then I would have flopped quads. Like, it was just the most absurd hand. It literally, it still haunts me to this day.
It still hurts.
I mean, yeah, I mean, so then I just 15 minutes to go in day one. I get jacks, and a guy calls me with like ace queen, a shove, and it was just like the most womp womp day ever. It was just like nothing good happened. I just kind of floated around, and it was like, okay, yeah, that's probably about what a guy that's not qualified to be in this tournament should do.
Dude, it's a grind. I had a client this year. He finished 23rd. Seb Schultz, shout out to Seb. 23rd. People don't realize how many hours of poker that is. To get to day 9 of 10, 12-hour days back to back to back. Oh, man, it's a mental grind.
Chris Cohen and I have talked about going out there and playing at some point, but I'm like, and I don't really want to light 10,000 on fire, but I've done it before. And because my whole deal is like, even if I were to make a run towards the money, I would be so beat up, physically, like just from sitting there, like you say, for that long. There's just no way. Anyways, let's move on. Yeah. So I got to get one thing straight first here. The difference in, and I'm sure there's a difference, and I'm sure they piggyback on each other, hypnosis and meditation. When I was playing professional golf, late 90s, early 2000s, when Tiger was really clicking, we literally thought he was playing golf hypnotized, like straight up pocket watch dangling in front of you, hypnotized. So my first question is, what's the difference between what you do and the caricature version of hypnosis? And you're like, oh no, I use a pocket watch. But I mean, like, what? I assume you don't have a pocket watch you're waving on the screen in front of your people. What is the difference between what you do and that?
Yeah, fantastic question. So for those of you listening, your mind is going to that pocket watch. You think I'm going to get Scott to cluck like a chicken, put him to sleep, and you've seen iterations of hypnosis, at comedy shows on cruise ships. All of that is technically hypnosis. It's just unlike anything I do or use with my clients. So I always like to share, hypnosis, it's not magic. It's not brainwashing. It's not mind control. It's a natural state of mind that Scott, me, every one of you listening has already been in multiple times per day. So to kind of touch on the tiger point now, right now, Scott and I are having a conversation. We're engaged. We're focused. We're primarily producing in our brains what are known as beta brain waves. After a long, arduous day on the course at work, we come home, we take that hot shower, we start to relax a little bit, we shift down more into producing alpha brain waves. And some people would start to call that the onset of some light meditation as well. We fall asleep, we go way, way down. We produce primarily delta brain waves. There's a sweet spot in between slight relaxation and sleep where we produce theta brain waves, which is a meditative state. They tag and hook up all those Buddhist monks who can stay in that state for hours on end because they're these master expert meditators. So when I talk about hypnosis, it absolutely is it's a deep meditative state. I tell my clients it's a deep. Yeah, it's a deep state of relaxation. The only caveat I add is in our context, we go there intentionally with an emphasis and an intention. We're problem solving, we're overcoming challenges. Whereas a lot of us hear what Scott said, we think Tiger in that hypnotic state, he's in the zone, if you will. People call it the flow state. He's got that mix of alpha and theta brainwave production where he shuts out all of the outside external noise and he's just so present and focused in the moment. We can recreate that in a coaching scenario and then do some very deep, rewarding work in that state.
Well, and that's what I've tried to tell people, that what I've realized, the zone, flow state, whatever, in my opinion, that's just a moving meditation, which what I've said to people, you accidentally are going to fall into it every once in a while. We've all been there, but that you can get there intentionally. Like that was always the thing to me that was so elusive, where it's like my best tournament round ever in professional golf, I shot 10 under. And the first round, I shot 67 with a double and a triple. And I was in the afternoon morning wave. And I literally shot 67 with a double and triple. And of course, it was obviously easy. But I went home. I did not sleep for a single second. I was so pissed off. I was so mad. And I was just like, I'm so sick of making these same mistakes over and over and over again, whatever. And I'm like, there's just no way you can't shoot 59 on this course. And I basically, out of anger, I was in like a mad flow state. I went out the next morning, birdied the first 7 holes, lipped out on 8 and 9, and birdied 10, 11, and 12. I did not sleep for nearly 36 hours, but I was in like this tired fog, but I had just sat there for literally 6 or 7 straight hours playing this golf course over and over and over in my head. And then I just went out and effectively did it. It was the strangest experience in my life, but that's kind of like following up on Tiger. I got to see him up close at the 99 US Open that I played in and at the Byron Nelson a couple times. And he just had this different look on his face. And that's the only reason that it felt like he was pocket watch hypnotized, because he didn't look present. He just looked like he was just looking through you. And it's one of the strangest things ever. So again, since you said that they're similar-ish, I assume you have would your client do meditation on their own on a daily basis, or like, how does that work?
So how do they
piggyback on each other?
So I do a couple of routes. Number one, there's always foundational, I call them high performance habits that need to be in place. Like if you want to be the best of the best in your industry or niche expertise, like if you can't take care of yourself, you're never going to be the best. So meditation, under that umbrella of self-care is mandatory. So like I'm a big fan of, I recommend all the time, the Waking Up app. For a lot of my clients, especially a lot of my athletes, will create specific, whether we call them affirmation recordings, and I'll throw some meditative music behind it, but that's a way where we're deeply intentional in goal setting and belief upgrading, where we'll put some music around their own spoken upgrades and beliefs that we're working on, and we'll use that to create a meditative opportunity as well. So it's a daily practice that I push them to create if they don't have it already, and if they do, we look for upgrade opportunities.
Well, I mean, again, this circles back to what we were talking about earlier a little bit of, we all know to do that. Like the amount of players that I've worked with, and we start talking about meditation, and they're like, you know what? I did that for 6 months and I actually played well. And then I don't even know why, but I just stopped doing it. And again, you're not going to get anyone on the planet, probably, that's not true, obviously, but in golf that talks about meditation more than I do and the importance of it. And personally in my life, when I do it and I'm consistent with it, it's just, I mean, I'm just a better person. I'm a better human, everything about it. But I certainly don't do it nearly as consistently as I can. Why can't we do this consistently?
There's so many directions I want to go, but the one that might catch people by surprise is most people are afraid of next level success or being the best version of themselves. So to piggyback on that example, let's say there's 10 things that are so research backed, scientifically proven. If you do these 10 things every day, Scott, you will accomplish all of your wildest dreams. And you start one day, 2 day, you start building some momentum, you start seeing and experiencing it paying off. Well, what inevitably happens is you start doing it more consistently. You start to step outside of your comfort zone, which is kind of just this environment of familiarity, comfortability, and most importantly, predictability. Your subconscious is always scanning your environment for threats. And when patterns and experiences start to come up as incongruent based on what you're used to, you're used to mediocre success, now you're having more success, it's a big red flag moment. So your subconscious, and that's one goal, keep you safe, keep you in that bubble of familiarity and predictability. And the way that it does that is it deploys these patterns. I call them destructive mindset programs where, it's that 2 steps forward. Oh shit, I know it works, but maybe I can take shortcuts. And you become excellent at justifications, excuses, reasonings to skip a step here or there. And lo and behold, eventually something that was done daily, then it's done a couple of times a week, and then it's not done altogether because you have felt that destructive mindset program being deployed to bring you back to safety.
Do you have like an example when you say destructive mindset program? Because I definitely have personally, when I talk with my therapist and everything about self-sabotage and everything, because
Mm-hmm.
again, I do feel like sometimes like I'm a pretty smart guy. I know all the right things to do and say, and then I don't do them, which to me sounds like a self-sabotage, but like, I certainly don't feel like I want to self-sabotage. I'm consciously aware of this idea, but I mean,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, let's talk a few examples. So for sabotage, I say there's typically 2 categories of self-sabotage, capital S and lowercase s. So the capital S is the big no shit moment. Anybody in any place in the world hears you say that, you're addicted to gambling, porn, overspending, alcohol, drugs. No shit. Obviously, that's a sabotaging behavior. But then there's the sneaky lowercase s ones. That's the snoozing the alarm. That's the starting the trend or the pattern of breaking some of the little promises you keep to yourself. I'm going to get my 10-minute meditation this morning. I'm going to work out after lunch. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to go to bed at 9 p.m., wake up at 5 a.m. So on their own, you miss a meditation, you miss a workout, doesn't feel like the end of the world. However, they accumulate and compound to pack a very destructive punch. So what we see often, especially with entrepreneurs, it's either this, it's got to be perfect, the perfectionistic OCD tendencies, those type A individuals, they've got this grand idea, they're incredibly clear on the action steps they need to take to get there, but they keep coming up with excuses and justifications as to why it's not the perfect time or why they can't quite take this step or reach out to have that conversation. So they get stuck in that paralysis analysis, just waiting for that perfect moment that never exists, compared to just if they'd started taking action, even imperfect action, they're already moving closer to their goal.
well, I mean, it's interesting because I definitely was wanting to bring up something idea around staying stuck or getting unstuck. When I was playing in my 20s, I traveled with Chad Campbell and Chris Riley quite a bit, and 2 future Ryder Cup players, PGA Tour winners. And I mean, I won twice on the Hooters Tour. Like I wasn't kidding myself; I was decent. But Chad was winning half of his starts, and Chris was just crushing everyone. And I'm playing practice rounds with these guys every week. And I'm like, I feel like I'm just as good as them, but I couldn't quite get out of my own way. I think I was working as hard as them and everything else, but like what separates players who break through from that stuck type feeling? Like, again, I felt just, I'm doing all the right things. I'm working hard. And for me, it was largely, I just was such a hothead and everything, but like what in your experience, like someone who makes the shift from where they were to where they want to go?
Yeah, typically we got to go down to their beliefs. So we all have these core beliefs about ourselves. Am I worthy, deserving, and capable? So we apply them to the kind of the topic of next level success. A lot of people, do not fully, with all of their being, believe they are worthy and deserving of that next level success. So whether that's a tour card, whether that's a 7-figure or 8-figure income, and it's all because they each have their own experience of either money stories or success stories that were impressed upon them from a young age. And, I'll give you
What
the
do you mean by
financial
money stories or success stories?
So example. Let's do a money story example here. If you grew up, I have this is very relatable story to many of my clients. Let's say you grew up with a single mom and dad's not in the picture. Mom raised you. Mom worked 2 or 3 jobs. She worked the overnight shift and she did everything she could to provide just enough for you to get by. Money was tight. You had everything you needed, rarely anything you wanted. And oh, by the way, mom always said rich people are evil. People with money are assholes. Your whole experience coming into this world is there's just barely enough money, and the emotions that are present are scarcity, anxiety, and stress. And you've always been told that having a lot of money means you're a bad person. If you were to pursue a lot of money, there's an incongruency present. So again, we come back to that concept of safety. If I'm going to go now try to build a multi-million-dollar business, but mom says rich people are evil, well, fuck, mom did so much to me. Like, I don't want to sever that relationship. Tension, envy, resentment could possibly build. And that's the last thing I want to lose. And oh, by the way, too, we have this concept, Ed Milet created this, or that's where I heard it. We have an emotional home. The 2 to 3 emotions that are most present in our childhood become familiar. So we do everything we can to get our fix of them, even if they're not good for us. So again, with the money example, if scarcity, lack, stress, and anxiety is what I grow up with because mom is doing everything she can to make ends meet and there's barely enough, I am going to unconsciously try to recreate those patterns. I'm going to make decisions or not take action to still feel that sense of scarcity and lack. And it's not until you can take a big 30,000 step view back and see like, oh, shit, those aren't my beliefs. Those aren't how I want to feel about money. Then is an opportunity to start unlearning all of those beliefs so that you can then build your own.
Is that just like a human biology and it's just innate in us because of growing up is evolving through being you herding, packing family where if you were out of the herd, you were pretty much going to wander off and die by yourself. Is it like that that's making you go back to those childhood feelings? It just seems so weird to me. I grew up, I'm going to guess upper middle class, maybe lower upper class. I mean, we were never worried about money, but my parents got divorced. And when they did, we lived in a duplex and, whatever, but I never had to worry about anything. So I never had that issue. I mean, is that just human biology?
Yeah, it's 2 parts. One, it is, our ancestors, we're a tribal species. So yeah, centuries ago, we got annexed from the tribe, rejected, judged. Yeah, it's just, it's that saber-toothed tiger. We starve to death. We don't have shelter, so we die. Fast forward all these years, we don't have nearly the same dangers and threats in our life, but, loneliness, look how, we're more disconnected than ever now because of social media. And that takes a real toll on our mental, physical, and emotional health. So if I'm going to step into this next level of success, there's a threat on that relationship. People are going to potentially feel envy, jealousy, resentment, and you could potentially be cut off. That's a threat. Unconsciously, we don't want that. And then second, we come back to that walking meditation we kicked off our conversation with. For the first 7 years of life, we're primarily in a hypnotic state, only producing theta brainwaves. Researchers estimate 95% of our core beliefs are formed there. So again, if you grow up and mom talks so terribly about people with money, there's never enough, that's all you hear. It is deeply fucking impressed on your psyche. And it needs to be unlearned, but it takes awareness and then the right action to start the unlearning process.
Interesting. So I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. In our podcast together, you've talked a little bit about memory reconciliation and everything. And, again, you've got baggage that people can't let go of. I still get mad at myself, and we all beat ourselves up for something you did however long ago, and you can't, release a past round or failure or just whatever it is. Tell me a little bit about memory reconciliation, what you mean by that. Because it's one of these things when you're interviewing me, I don't get to ask some of the questions. What are you talking about with that?
Yeah, so memory reconsolidation is really just the fancy way to say that memories are, they're not always 100% correct the way we recall them. We recall them through our own lens, beliefs, and experiences. But 2, they are moldable, malleable. So getting into that hypnotic state and revisiting them is like seeing them typed up on a Microsoft Word document, opening that document and doing some editing, draining some of the emotion. So I'll use a golf specific one. Let's say everyone listening has that one hole in the course that it seems like there's a magnet for their ball to the water or OB. There's just always double, triple that hole. Here at Tampa Palms, hole 5, people have nightmares about it. It's hysterical. It's a tight dog leg left, long par 5. And we always joke the mounds that are just off the fairway are concrete. They'll kick your ball into the woods in a heartbeat. So you have these, I'm going to use this word loosely, traumatic moments on the golf course, but definitely in real life where when you have such an emotionally charged moment, you're in a physically, emotionally painful moment, your brain and unconscious mind are doing everything they can to learn from it and build a defense to protect you from experiencing that pain again. So by revisiting some of these moments, these memories, and doing so in a therapeutic light to drain the emotion and detach from them, you have an opportunity. The analogy I use is like to drain the color from the moment. You don't erase the memory per se, but now when you stand on the tee box of that hole, you're unfazed, you're unaffected. You can use that energy that you've been holding on to, just, anger, grief, sadness, regret, and use it to be present and actually access your skill set, eliminate the mental interference, and do what you need to do to score well in that hole.
Well, you mentioned traumatic moments in memory and whatnot there. And elite performers, I think it'd be funny if people knew when I had Corn Ferry Tour status, 2 years prior, I entered Q School as a 35-year-old amateur in 2008, which was kind of on a bet. I was one of 4 people that made it through all 4 stages, and I'm the oldest amateur to gain status on the Corn Ferry Tour by 12 years. So, but 2 years prior, I had like a yip going in my putting. And when I would show up to the course, like I got rid of it. And it had been 2 years since I had felt one. But every single day going to the course, I felt this pit in my stomach. Is it going to come back today? Is it going to come back today? And then I would finish around, be like, hey, it didn't come back today. But like literally after a couple hundred rounds, I would assume at least, of not yipping one, I still felt like it might come back. So like elite performers, Tiger, when he had his chipping yips, and again, Como tells me it was mechanical. Well, I don't care if it's mechanical or not. When you were hitting the shots he was hitting, and then in 2019, he lays it up intentionally to the exact shot he would have died on. What are the best players do differently? They still experience fear, frustration, doubt, all these emotions. What does a guy like Tiger, what did the greats do differently? Because I'll even throw Zalatoris in there, obviously, caddying for him when he won the Texas A&M US Junior. Yeah, sure, he's got a little bit of a yip on a short putt. I've watched it up close for 15 straight years. But he just tees it back up and doesn't care. I'm sure he does more than he lets on, but what do these elite guys do differently than someone like me that could never stop kind of dwelling on it back in the day?
Yeah, so we got to look at like healthy detachment, and kind of maybe what you're alluding to with Zalatoris is, so many people put pressure, like if I need to make this 3-foot putt. And for those of you listening, like you got to listen to and audit your self-talk. I need to, I have to, I should. That's a dead giveaway that there is some massive fucking attachment to an outcome. Yet you can't control all of your outcomes. You can control your processes and your approach, your attitude, intention, and effort, but not the outcome. So in the next level, humans are humans. I don't care if you have $1 billion in the bank account or 10 major trophies in your trophy case. At the end of the day, we're wired incredibly similarly. And you're not a special snowflake. Scott, you're a rare one. I'll give you that. But in that regard, a lot of it strips back down to those core fears of judgment, abandonment, and rejection, or this pressure to be somebody that you begin to experience at next level success. So we see these, I don't even like to use the word to be candid, but we see those yip variations occur sometimes after some great success, because the pressure, the weight of expectation, and then the uncertainty, was that a fluke? Am I an imposter? Becomes so overwhelming. All that's really happening is mental interference. Your mind becomes so scattered and cloudy, you're not able to access the wealth of skill development you already possess. So we've got to clear that. We've got to get rid of the anxiety, the performance anxiety, and really make sure the belief and esteem are bolstered appropriately and you're detached from the outcome.
That's really interesting. Yeah. the attachment to outcome, I think, is the biggest thing that meditation and other things have allowed me to do. It's James Nichols just won yesterday on the Corn Ferry Tour, and he
Hmm.
finished birdie par eagle. And it's funny because we were messaging, and I was just like, Stay off the leaderboard. Don't think anything about it." I mean, actually, well, I'm gonna, because I can do this really quick. I'm gonna pull up
Yeah.
exactly what he said back because I think it's so interesting. Again, this guy just won on the Corn Ferry Tour, and when we did, hold on. Oh, come on now. Here we go. Uh, I said, "Sorry for missing this message." It was from something he'd sent earlier, whatever. Uh, Best of luck over the next 2 days. Seriously, try your hardest to not worry about the leaderboard, your score, or anything. Just commit to making optimal decisions time and time again, and then see what happens at the end. Our mind starts racing so fast when we're considering all the iterations of what might happen when you become results oriented. The hard part is it's impossible to not be results oriented. And he replied with, "I don't even know where I stand. I don't look at leaderboards. I just try to make the right decision and go from there. We'll see where it adds up." And that's the utopian answer. And again, like I say, this dude just finished birdie par eagle. And whether or not he actually knew where he stood yesterday, I'm not sure. But it's not like he went out and be like, "Oh, well, you know what? I need to eagle this last hole in order to win, so I'm going to go and eagle it." He made good decisions and hit good shots, and then it wound up working out for him. And I just think that attachment to outcome, attachment to your score. Someone like me, it was my self worth. I mean, my stepmom used to say in high school all the time, if I came home and was pissed off and she was, like being mean to me, she'd be like, "So how'd you play today?" And I'm just like, "Yep, I really don't appreciate that." All
But
right, I
see,
gotta ask the standard. Go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up though, because like for me, as I hear that, like, and this guy clearly gets it, like success is simple. Simple's not easy. Let's not confuse the two. But the way that our environment is today, like human beings are more than ever today, we are impatient. We let our ego get in the way. We care way too much about people's opinions. And 99% of these people we don't know, they hide behind another Instagram profile. And that's what clouds our ability to see like the next three steps in front of us. We fall victim to that shiny object syndrome, caring about how other people perceive us when we learn to let go of that. And that's a learnable skill in and of itself. That's why somebody like that can just have that boring, basic answer, because that truly is the root of next level success.
Well, that's what I tell people all the time. Like, and I say it probably too many times it's nauseating, but I'm like, every answer I'm giving you is the utopian answer. It is the correct answer. Now doing it, but then a lot of it too, especially with my younger players, the high school, college kids, young Corn Ferry type guys, your brain is just coming into being fully formed around 25 as a guy. So it's not even that you're dumb, and it's not even that you can't make good decisions. It's you literally can't make good decisions. The
Yeah.
part of the brain that separates us from other animals, and I think the hippocampus or whatever, prefrontal cortex, it takes like
Prefrontal
30% of the
cortex.
calories the brain's use. It's either 30% of the mass of the brain or 30% of the energy expenditure is that part that allows us to make good decisions. And it's just mind-boggling how difficult it is to do consistently, especially again when
Yeah.
you know this is the right answer. Now just go do this. When you said success isn't hard, people ask me all the time. I mean, I've started a successful electricity company. I was at a minimum a successful professional golfer. Whether I made it to the PGA Tour or not doesn't withstand that I probably got into the top 500 players in the world at one point. Like that's
Yeah.
pretty crazy. And I'm like, it's not that hard. Sit down, figure out what you want to do, figure out the plan that you're going to do, and iterate. But just do the work. Most people just don't do the work. And I actually hate it when people say that because it sounds so narcissistic. Be like, "Well, I worked hard." It's like it's not that I worked hard. You just work correctly and efficiently.
Yeah.
Everyone works hard that's actually trying to accomplish something. Just some people are working on the wrong things. And so when I was playing in my 20s, I was always working on the wrong thing. When I would miss at Q school, I would go to Barnes and Noble or Pauly Walden Books at the time and buy 6 different sports psychology books and a notebook. And I'm going to totally retool everything as opposed to be like, you know what? You got a half a shot better this year. You're on the trajectory of where you need to go. Just keep doing the
Mm.
same thing. And I would retool every single year and just start over. And that's definitely not the way to do it.
Well, so you bring up a great point too. Like what I'm hearing is you describe whether an entrepreneur or a competitive golfer, just that go, go, go mindset. It's one of their superpowers, but oftentimes they go so fast, especially after a poor outcome, a mistake, whatever it may be, there's no pause. There is no meditation practice. That silence, to solitude, to connect with yourself, your intuition, whatever you higher power, whatever you want to call it. But when you slow down and learn how to quiet the noise, those reflective periods help you understand what you just shared. Oh, I got a half stroke better. Now I need to read 6 books and reinvent my swing. And when you have that practice as a foundational piece of your self-care daily routine, you're able to avoid the mistakes or avoid going down the wrong path too long, and you can more quickly course correct.
Well, there's a video on YouTube that'll make you wanna run through a brick wall. Jocko Willink, who's a Navy SEAL that kinda makes all the
Okay.
rounds on the Peak Performance podcast, and it's just titled Good. I would just go search Jocko Good,
Okay.
and in it, he's saying that one of his subordinates is like, "I've got a problem here, but I don't even wanna ask you for advice because you're just gonna say good." And he's like, "What is it?" He's like, "The mission got canceled. Good. The mission didn't get funded. Good." And it's like, that allows us. And so when you get knocked down, and I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like, and Jocko's just got, as you would expect, this deep Navy SEAL voice. He's like, "Good. It's time to recalibrate, recharge, reload, and get back to it." And it's just like, but they've got all these like night vision goggle sounds kind of like going on during it. It's incredible. But all right, I'm going to ask the standard podcast question. What advice would you give your 25-year-old self looking back, a young player, a young
Jesus.
Paul? What would you tell them to do differently than you're currently doing? And this is what's hard too. I've said this before. If I went back to my 25-year-old self and I'm like, "I'm you in the future. This is what you should do." I don't know that I would do it. I mean, again, like, there's definitely times when I was between my first and second marriage and had a double murder suicide. I was drinking way too much. I was a train wreck. There's no doubt my 52-year-old self would have gone to my 35-year-old self and be like, "Hey, buddy, I'd appreciate it if you would stop that. You're going to save yourself a whole lot of agony. Maybe, start meditating." I just don't even know that I would have listened to myself. So, as you answer your question, how do we actually heed our own advice? They say the definition of wisdom is taking the advice you'd give somebody else. And it's like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I agree. Like, I love where I am today, and I wouldn't be here if I hadn't been through the shit I've been through. I had 2 answers come to mind. Number one, slow down. I mean, I move a million miles an hour. I mean, my podcast listeners know I talk fast, and it's a superpower, but it flirts with being a kryptonite on occasion. I think the answer, though, is have more fun. And what, for me personally, like I alluded to, I was always studying, learning, reading. And I was that kid. This sounds so funny, like 14 years, maybe like 16 years old. I used to always sleep over at my buddy's house. We're playing Madden, football, Halo on the Xbox all night. And at like 16, I stopped. I'd like go home at like 10:30, a reasonable bedtime for a 16-year-old kid, because I'd get up the next morning early and I'd be reading or I'd be exercising. And like, that sounds all well and good. But, there's a book out there called Die with Zero by, what's his name, Bill Perkins.
Yeah, it's great.
And one of the most profound quotes that I took away from that book, and I'm not going to get it correct, but it's about like the only thing you go to the grave with are memories and experiences. Not who cares if you have $1 billion in your bank account. And I feel I would tell my younger self, like, go make more memories. There it is. That is the actual quote or the feedback, because those are the things I'm going to remember, the late night with my buddies or the wonderful dates and whatever the new novel experiences are. So make more memories.
Yeah, it's interesting because that is a great book.
Yeah.
That Die with Zero and The Psychology of Money are two that really helped me. And
Yeah.
it's not saying die with zero literally, like line out how much you want to give your kids or your heirs or to charity or whatever. Like, have that set and in place. But then and I've always said this, like, I should probably have a lot more money than I have, but I like spending it and doing whatever it is that I want to do, because I realized early on in life that the kind of person that can make enough money to retire young is pretty much the exact kind of person that shouldn't do that, because you can't fill that much dead time. So you said early on in that last answer, though, just to slow down. And I think that's a really interesting idea for peak performers. So Phil Jackson, there's another book called The Mindful Athlete from George
Yeah.
Mumford.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, he says that, he worked with Phil Jackson, Pat Riley, Pete Carroll, like all the big names came through this guy. And he said somebody asked him, or asked Phil Jackson, I think it was in the forward actually, how do you get guys like Scotty and Jordan and all these elite performers? How do you get them to put in enough work? And he's like, my entire job is getting those guys to do less. And I would say that's for sure the case for me, especially with players around majors. They need to kind of go in for the majors, go in a week or two in advance, just play a single practice round, just see the golf course, get the lay of how everything lays out. And then when you're there, you really just need to be doing 999 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So play them both. And then Wednesday, play whichever one you're not quite comfortable on again. But get your rest. When I played in the 99 US Open, it was an unfortunate deal where the condo, we wound up getting a free place to stay like 2 weeks before. But when we got there, the cable was out. So basically had nothing to do. And so I just stayed at the course. And as you know, it's Disneyland. It's a major championship. Is it Pinehurst? I'm walking around signing autographs, kissing babies. Like I'm having a blast as a Hooters tour player. And then by the time Thursday got there, I was absolutely smoked. I mean, totally smoked. And that's like Zalatoris, we've talked a lot about. He plays 9 holes, and then oftentimes on Wednesday doesn't even play it. He goes out and practices, but it's just a casual warm up, just something to do, and then go watch movies, go watch TV, go do anything else that you possibly can. When you're focusing on over grinding, it can actually work against you. Like, what do you have to say about how you pull back the reins as much as push too hard? Because here we just said a lot of success is just doing your job, but then a lot of success is also knowing when to chill out.
Yeah, so 2 quotes come to mind first that I think are timely. Tim Grover says it really well. If you keep grinding like a rock or a stone over and over, what are you left with? Like literally nothing. So I love the power in that. It's like you grind 18 Monday, or maybe 36 Monday, 18 Tuesday, 18 Wednesday, and then you expect to have your all for the entire weekend? Absolutely not. And then Brad Stulberg, funny enough, I think I brought him up when we recorded the episode going live Thursday. In one of his books, Stress plus Rest equals Growth. Most high performers struggle with the rest component. On a subconscious and skill acquisition level, if you're putting, let's say you've got a 30-day preparation schedule leading into a major, you're working on a couple of specific aspects of your game, the actual skill acquisition before it gets moved from like conscious awareness into your unconscious, that occurs when you're not out there practicing. So on a micro level, I love Zalatoris' schedule like you shared there. That Wednesday, you're just kind of gruesing the grief, familiarizing yourself with the feels. The rest component is necessary to literally allow all of your hard work to be able to be on display when you need it most. And most individuals don't recognize that.
I mean, again, it's comical looking back. And when I would be at home practicing, they've got those large, huge yellow teaching buckets back in the day. You don't see them as much anymore. But I would have one of those airborne by 10 a.m. and I would think that I'm just working my butt off. And now it's like, that's one thing Como told me about Tiger, and Hank Haney says it in his book also. He just practices so slow, it's excruciating. And that's definitely something I've shifted to, quality over quantity. That's one sports cliche that is 100% spot on. And so obviously this whole interview here isn't meant to be a sales pitch for you, but I do hope some of my members who are in that stuck position reach out to you. I would kind of ask 2 questions at the same time. You're like, what kind of golfers tend to get the most out of your work? And is there anyone that like this approach isn't suited for? Because I talk about maybe mushrooms or other things. Like there's definitely some people that it's contraindicated for. You should not be doing it if you got schizophrenia in your family. And I don't feel like hypnosis is gonna be the same thing. But so who's this kind of suited for? And then other people, like we've all kind of tried sports psychology and visualization and positive self-talk and all that stuff. Like why is hypnosis a step different from that kind of stuff if someone is working with you?
Yeah, so like visualization, breath work, these are all great low-hanging fruit, surface level strategies. They're tools that need to be cultivated and sharpened. They have their time and place. They're very context specific. And, breath work and visualization should be ongoing practices. But we come back to kind of full circle here. If you know what to do and you're not doing it, that's a mindset problem rooted in fear, belief, or an identity issue. And your subconscious is literally home to your memories, your beliefs, your values, and your habits. So hypnosis allows us to connect with your subconscious. So we can, for example, go discover when, why, and how did you learn performance anxiety, fear of next level success, to be overly concerned about other people's opinions. All of those maladies and challenges that you face, they're all learned. hypnosis is the fast track path to unlearn. And then, people with what I do, you either you've tried everything else and you're desperate. I'm typically a last resort for a lot of people, candidly. And second to that, people, you feel aligned, or dare I even say called to this type of work. Like you've been through the block, you've likely had some form of coaching in the mental game, sports psychology in the past, and hopefully it was a positive experience, yet you still feel there's something untouched, uncovered that needs to be addressed. So the individual who is driven, open-minded, coachable, and willing to truly be all in on their goals, that's who I love working with. That's the ideal fit.
Very nice. So I don't turn this into the Joe Rogan podcast or Lex Friedman and go for 3 hours. Let's finish up with one last thought here. So some players, just from this chat, I mean, again, the amount of people that DM me, I haven't even bought Decade yet, and I've dropped 4 shots off my handicap. I'm like, well, then give me $100, man. Come on. But let's say that this podcast actually was enough to work for some players to get unstuck, or, they go on their own journey or with you or whatever. What surprises them looking back to say, like, oh, I didn't see that coming, or my God, that is so obvious, or just wherever you would go with a question like that?
Most people are surprised just to fully begin to see and understand how much their past plays a role in who they are today. They want to think, men especially, that, I'm generalizing, emotionally constipated, so stubborn to ask for help. And when it comes to blaming, or not even blaming, just acknowledging, all of our upbringing influences who we are today, that can be a real mind fuck for a lot of people, because they think they've grinded out their life to this date. They've worked through that. They don't need to address it. They think they're master compartmentalizers and they've repressed it so deep. And yeah, maybe, sure, you have, but when you repress memories and emotions, you're exhausting your energy stores to do that on a daily basis. When you sit down and you go through one of my coaching experiences and we get to the core of when, why, and how you're sabotaging yourself in a certain way, and we work through it and unlearn it, the immediate benefit is a massive amount of energy. You've been leaking energy to this point. Now we can take that abundance of energy, build the correct beliefs, complement the correct behaviors to get you to that next level of success.
I mean, when you say that energy leak, that to me just sounds like a pseudonym for stress. I mean, it really you're just wearing yourself out, just completely stressed out about something that, I mean, we just all kick these tasks down the road, or difficult conversation down the road. And then you just spend, rather than just getting it done. There's always Instagram posts or memes, whatever. They're just like, this thing that I've been stressing about for 6 weeks, I finally did it today. It took 9 minutes. It's like,
Yeah.
What are we doing? So,
yeah, let me add to that too, real quick. I'm gonna add one more thing, and I'll shut up too. But it's like most good golfers too. Most people don't realize, like, a lot of the stressors, the fears, the beliefs that I dig into, they're completely unrelated to golf. Like, you bring your whole self to the golf course. And again, you might think you're the best compartmentalizer in the world, but a common example I see, especially with men and professional athletes, is like, maybe dad was always on your fucking ass. He's dropping you off at the golf course at 7 a.m. He's not picking you up until 7 p.m. He's the one hounding you. And, dad and son, that's just an unbreakable bond in many instances, or at least that's how society makes it out to be. So you do everything you can to impress dad, but maybe dad's drinking too much. Dad's angry. Dad takes his emotions, his frustration, his lack of self-care out on you. And you've got this really challenging love-hate relationship with dad. You want to please dad. And the only way you know how to please dad to get his love and attention is by performing well, winning the tournaments, getting all the accolades and accomplishments. And, you grow up in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and you're just carrying such anger and resentment to dad. He took your childhood away because you only did this one sport 12 hours a day. Imagine how heavy that is. Yeah. And when you're able to begin releasing that, oh my God, you feel and then show up and perform as a night and day different individual. And that is why I love what I do. And it's incredibly rewarding and fulfilling to see and be a part of that experience.
Well, I mean, again, that was a not so subtle way of also telling parents, like, hey, chill out a little bit. I mean, so when I used to do my seminars and some parents would come with their kids and everything, 90% of what I was saying to the parents along the lines of chill out without directly saying it. Because people would be, I'd be like, your kid's still going to go do stupid stuff. I mean, that's my somewhat gross canned joke is that's why 18-year-olds make good soldiers and me at 52 wouldn't. Like, they can't think and make a good decision. So even with all the information in the world, they're still just going to do dumb stuff and make mistakes. So like you say, kind of easing back a little bit. Now you want to point out to them, hey, see, this was a spot where you could have done X, Y, or Z. And the other challenge too in golf as a parent, when you're sitting on the sideline and they do something perceivably dumb, maybe just a terrible shot. I mean, you just literally have absolutely no idea what really happened there until a little bit of post-round analysis, and right after the round isn't the time for it. Have an ice cream sandwich. What did that pop in my head? Lack of
You
free will.
hungry?
Chill out and then address it. That's from Josh Waitzkin's book, The Art of Learning. He said that he just
Yeah.
gets so frustrated when he watches poker coaches, chess coaches right after a match, just dig right into everything they did wrong. And they're like, it's like they're spreading their peacock feathers for the parents of, look how much I'm teaching your kid. That's not the time for anyone under the age of 22 at a minimum and on up to 25 to be attempting to think clearly. It's just not going to happen.
No.
Well, so I would just finish it by saying, I guess, podcast, hey, where can people find out more about you? I feel so silly saying that, but tell us where they can find out more about you, and how's your dog?
My dog is obsessed with the FedEx man who's here. I'm going to let him out as I wrap this up. But the best place on Instagram is at the Paul Salter, and then the golfhypnotherapist.com. You can learn more about me, my work, and find your opportunity. If this messaging aligns with you, you can apply to work with me in a one-on-one format as well.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I say, people, this is the first time I've done this. After our first podcast, I told him afterwards that I was really impressed with how he handled everything. So I can't imagine anything short of him doing a great job with some one-on-one work. So I would definitely investigate him. And there we go. Episode 1 in the books.
I love it. You feel like a natural.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect.
Awesome. Let me stop this.
Well, that's a wrap. Scott's first opportunity, first experience in the interviewer seat. How do you think he did? I thought he did a phenomenal job. And hey, I appreciate Scott so much. I appreciate you so much. I hope you found that conversation valuable. I hope you got to learn a little bit more about me. And again, like I stated in the beginning of the conversation, hear things differently or hear things in a way that just hit a bit differently. So you can continue to think, feel, do, and be differently. Thank you again for tuning in. If you found this valuable, hey, share it with a friend, a fellow golfer, entrepreneur, high performer in your social circle. And if you haven't done so already, I'd greatly appreciate your support of my goal to reach 1,000 ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you haven't left a rating and review, go do it. It means the world to me. I greatly appreciate it. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll catch you on Thursday, where Scott is officially back for his 3rd time here on the Scratch Golfers Mindset Podcast. I'll catch you then.